And we now do a deep dive into circular construction. It has already been announced that we have the honor of having Barbara Buser, who is with Architecture Office in situ in Zurich and in Vienna. And I also want to mention that Barbara came by train via Berlin, like some of our other guests. So we don't just fly in our speakers here for the Polish-Swiss Innovation Day. We're very happy to have you, and the floor is yours. Merci.
Das ist
da geht's führen.
Yep. Good morning. I'm very happy to be here. It's my first time to Poland, and I'm very interested to see how this economy is thriving. When you drive through the town, then you find all construction sites everywhere. I'm sure that what I'm telling you is not applicable 100% here, because you are still in another condition of constructing your environment, but maybe you will get there, or maybe you can actually start in a better way than we did. I have to tell you a little bit about where I'm coming from, because that explains what I'm doing. How to build at times of climate crisis. 40% of the CO2 comes from the construction industry. I don't need to repeat that. What can we do to avoid? We have a Swiss law which says reduce, reuse, recycle. And I'm talking about the reuse part of it. Very important is to start from the existing. Don't build everything new. That's more an advice to Swiss people than here, probably. Use natural and renewable materials. That also applies to here. And design for circularity, build for disassembly. After my studies at ETH, I started to work in Africa on a water well digging project. Water is the first thing you need to survive, otherwise the country is not livable. And this will be one of the bigger challenges in the future. I then was contracted for the maintenance department of the University of Dar es Salaam, which is a whole town with 10,000 inhabitants, and they didn't have water. So we had to reinstall the water system and to build up a maintenance department. When I came back to Switzerland, I was completely shocked on how my culture, my civilization was dealing with raw material. So many things were just extracted from the soil, used and thrown away in a way that cannot be used anymore. And I decided to find a way to reduce this waste in Switzerland. And in '95, I founded an internet platform. I had to develop it myself with some friends, because eBay didn't exist. And we also realized we needed a physical store, because people were not that far yet that they could see a picture on the internet and order a material. So this is how the physical store looked like. Reuse of construction elements, resale materials. We went with jobless people into the demolition sites and recovered these items which were still perfect to use. I then founded, together with my colleague, about 4 or more companies, all around this subject, but they all have the same philosophy. You see this elevator, I don't know if it's from Schindler. It had to be replaced. It wasn't following the laws anymore. And then we thought, let's ask the users, do they really need these elevators? Because there were only 3 floors, 10 tenants served by it, and it would cost 130,000 to replace the elevator. And we asked them, would you prefer to pay less rent and have no elevator anymore, or would you like to have a new elevator? And this was the answer. They all preferred to go by foot, they go the few stairs. and pay less. And for me, this is really a sustainable solution. Economically, less money was spent, maybe not so good for Schindler. Ecologically, less waste produced and less resources used. We heard that our resources are finite. And it is social because the tenants profit as well. And they don't need to subscribe to the fitness center in addition. In 2014, we had been working almost 20 years, little by little, on all these ideas, and we said now we want to really know how we can combine all this and build a real lighthouse project, a pioneering project. And this was for our company also the turning point. We had been developing an old factory site of Sulzer in Winterthur. It's called Lagerplatz. And we had kept all the buildings, we had refurbished them, we had insulated them, we put additional windows, not new windows, additional ones, and so on. And this was the last building left over without having been transformed. We knew that we could add 3 floors, and we started to make first designs on how it could look like. We added the floors, we kept the thin brick walls of 12 centimeters with some rusty steel inside, and we add on top, but we knew that this small wall wouldn't hold 3 more floors, so we knew we would put the whole building inside the facade because we couldn't get out. And this was our idea, and then we went to look for used construction elements. The aim, I was putting it very high. I said 100% reuse, knowing very well that this is difficult, and we ended up actually with 70%. We were looking for electric fittings, for stairs, for windows, for cladding, for the facade, and so on. And we started to look in our own construction sites. We were very, very lucky because we had to dismantle a whole steel construction, and it was not welded, as mentioned also by Peter. If it's welded, it's much more difficult to dismantle. With these screws, you need a big wrench and a lot of human power, and you can dismantle the pieces. You have to have an engineer to say if it's still usable, and it was. It was well coated. I don't know if it's by RTP, maybe. And we had already our structure. So our design was always to find something, see if it can be adapted to our project, and then change the project, and then we know that's one stage. And then we went on, and we were looking for facade. Just over the street of the construction place, we found these windows being thrown away. They were aluminum, 2-glazed windows, and they are representing for me the atmosphere of these industrial buildings. So we took them without looking very specifically, but we took them back on our site. We also found a building which was only 28 years old, an office building in Zurich, and they couldn't rent it out anymore. It wasn't fashionable enough, and they decided to destroy it. We went to talk to the owner, and they said, okay, take whatever you want, it's all going to the bin. We could only take 1 row of windows because that was easy without the crane and everything, because we had to start before. We actually asked the site manager, when do you start? And he said, yeah, the tenants leave on the 31st of March, and we will start demolition on the 1st of April. So it wasn't so easy. How could we go in between? So I asked him, which end do you start, here or there? And then he said, here. I said, okay, then we start on this side. But we could only save a very small percentage of the windows and all the other materials, like these plates, facade plates, which we are taking down. We prepared as many windows as we needed. and they were ready in a storage for reuse. There was also a staircase, an emergency staircase, which more or less fitted to our design. So we measured the stairs and we adopted the floor height to the stairs, the existing stairs. We found a small plate with the name of the ones who had done the stairs 28 years ago, and the company still existed. And they were very happy that we said, can you dismantle it for us and build it up again? Because their really work, which I had put into this construction, was valued again, and it was not just melted down. After all these structural elements, we went to find a cladding. It could have been wood, it could have been eternit, it could have been these metal panels, and we liked the color of it because it fitted into our factory atmosphere. We also found a lot of radiators in a neighboring construction site. I don't know if they are from Zehnder, but they are, you can't kill them. You can use them for 100, 200 years. They will never rust and they can always be used. The only little problem was we only had one size. I'll show you after how we managed this. So after 1 year of really chasing construction elements, we had to redo our sketch. And you see that we still use the brick walls, and we add the 3 floors with these elements which I have shown you, which we had found. We have 2 different kinds of windows, the old ones from the factory, which are similar to the ones in the ground floor, and the other ones which are already aluminium windows with 3 windows, 3 glasses, so they were actually perfect. What did we do with the others? Because they didn't fulfill the requirements of the law, we just added. We had them free of charge. They were 50 meters away from our site, so we just took all we could and we added what we had at the end. And this is how the floor plan looks like. We had a trapeze form of the building, of the brick building, and our steel beams were made to make a square floor. So we said, okay, why don't we just add the square floor on the top? Down there, it doesn't matter. We have the cars passing, so we cannot increase the building, but up on the 3rd floor, we can have this projection. We built a mock-up also for the authorities, and you see here the use of these metal panels, then the windows, then we made some frames out of old used wood, and we filled it with straw. From the other side, we see the straw filling, the windows will close that opening. We also found doors, we found these granite plates which we cut, and since they were so polished that you would slip on the ground, we just turned them around because the other side was raw. We also wanted to use clay as a flooring material, but by then the rules and regulations were not as far yet that we could use it. Now we are doing floors with clay, which is even ground like terrazzo, and it's beautiful, but by then we had to use concrete. Once we had the construction license, we started to build up the building with all the material we had collected and stored in the meantime in 3 different storages. This is one thing very important because you cannot fit everything at the same time. You cannot organize a construction site that first you get your steel and then you get your facade and so on. You need intermediate storage. We built up the floors, and we also had found an old roof which we used as a lost shutter. We stuck it onto the steel construction, and we poured 8 centimeters of concrete on top. The facade elements were prefabricated. They were mounted in 2 weeks. Everything was there, already filled with the straw, but we did the clay rendering only on site. The diagonal crosses are for the earthquake security. And when we tried to finish the facade, we realized these metal panels, we had plenty, we had enough, but the profile was not the same. So we had to be inventive, and we found this solution that we just put one on top of the other, and it also contributes to the characteristic shape of the building. And here you see how we solved the problem of having only one size of radiators. The engineers said we need two, and so we put one on top of each other. I'm sure we need only one, really, but it's there, and maybe it can be reused in another project once it's proven that it's not necessary. We also found floor material, massive wood. We put it in, we did not even grind it, because each franc which we spent has to be paid by the tenants. And the higher the standard is, the more money you need, and the more the people want. They want it to be perfect and so on. If you rent, in Switzerland at least, an office at a lower price, then the people are happy to accept some imperfections and so on, or having no elevator. Here the shadow shows us exactly how we managed. You see this pattern of the two windows, one behind the next one. And with that we have 4 glazed windows which are perfect, and the other ones haven't been a problem. And this is also to show you how it looks, because we superposed this old structure, or old structure on the new old structure, and that's how this characteristic nose came. And I call it design by availability. Some colleagues, they just do it because it's fancy, but we did it because it was there. And the client was happy, of course, because there are some more square meters to rent. And this is the ultimate reason always. The good thing was that the client gave us 2 conditions in the beginning. He said, first of all, this new building out of old stuff cannot cost more than a new building. So this was a limit which we had to adhere to, and this made that we could only reuse 70%. But with this 70% of reuse, we saved 60% of CO2. And we were really amazed, because this was independently calculated. We couldn't believe our ears. And this made also that we got this Holcim Award for sustainable construction, and another prize for the steel reuse, and. And it was, as I said, really a turning point for our office. And the second condition of the client was that it should be really followed in a scientific way. And we had this architectural school on site, the ZHAW, and together with them we wrote a book with all our know-how, our experiences. We lay open the calculations, and the book has become a sort of a Bible, a compendium for reuse, and it's been translated into English as well now. Another consequence was that we started to think on, if we are with this building really on the global forefront of reuse, then the world of architecture, of construction, is nowhere. And we said, if we have to animate other architects to do the same, to think along the same lines. And we knew that architects' colleagues, they don't like other architects to talk to them about their projects. So we founded this consultancy, which is called Circular, Consultancy for Circular Construction. And my 2 colleagues, they were given all the power to make a new company in our family. So in 1995, I've started off with Bauteilbörse. In the meantime, a lot of other organizations took up the idea, were founded, disappeared again. And we realized that there are pioneers in all countries. In Germany, in Belgium, in Netherlands, everywhere there was at least one office which dealt with these. I just mention all these addresses so that I don't want to explain everything to you, but you can find it later on in the documentation. There was and then, after about 20 years, there started a second generation coming up. In Switzerland, in Portugal, for example, in the Ukraine, with the Metalab space, a group of architects in Ivano-Frankivsk who made a project for the reconstruction of their country, and in Poland. I was very, very happy to get to know these guys in Vienna last year, and we are going to meet them in person tomorrow. And it's really amazing that this idea pops up in all the countries. It's still a little plant, but it's growing. And we are very happy that in Poland, the same things, the same reason are also present. Their project is called Okna, and they had the same idea as we had in Switzerland when the war broke out in Ukraine. They started to think, how can we help Ukrainians when these bombs are destroying the houses, but mainly windows. And they started to collect windows, as we did, and sent them to Ukraine with the help of a lot of donors and with a lot of voluntary work. And they even presented their ideas in the London Biennale of Architecture or Art or Design, I don't remember, with this book they wrote. And we, at the same time, in Switzerland, founded an association which is called ReWin, because in Switzerland there are hundreds of windows thrown away every week. It's just incredible, it's paining. And you see these pictures of bombed houses with no windows anymore. And then you will ask yourself, but how does it fit? But since the demand is so big, you can always fit in the few windows. I say few because it's compared to the demand, the 27 lorries we've sent already, it's nothing. And each window will find a place where to be reinstalled. I've also been asked, but is it worth doing that? And we calculated that about 20% of the embodied energy in such a window is consumed by the transport. But in a case of war, you have to bring windows anyway from anywhere to repair the houses. So I don't think this is really important. What I think is that reuse should really become a part of the strategy for the reconstruction of Ukraine. Not like in other times, after World War II, where we could really rebuild and build new houses and maybe also copy the old ones using the rubble. I think this time we have to make a common effort to throw less away and to use it in the reconstruction of this country. And it will also help us to think differently about these things. This is how we collect the windows, then we send them to Ukraine, and then they are there, standing in front of these wooden shutters. These, for example, are brand new windows. They still have the etiquette. It's a wrong command, and they would have been really crushed, thrown away in Switzerland. And here they can help. The good thing also is that we are not isolated anymore. We met in 2019. We invited all the people whom we knew to Basel. Then there was a second meeting of all the people concerned about reuse in Vienna in 22, and there will be next year again a meeting in 24. We call it Circular Exchange, and we hope that the Polish people will be there next year. since 2020, also universities start to do research. All ahead is EMPA, of course, but also University of Liechtenstein started a new chair, reuse and upcycling. ETH Zurich has a few professors who are dealing with that, then all the other schools, but also, as I said, in all the countries of Europe, we start feeling this development. Now I come to conclusion on how can we still continue to build carbon neutral. We have our famous colleagues, Lacarton Vassal, and they also stress never demolish any existing building. Then we have a famous German, the Daniel Fuhrhopp. He even goes further in Germany. He says, stop all new construction until we have a more clever way to build. I think that doesn't apply yet here in Poland. You have still a lot of things to catch up. And we have our company saying, close the circles. Design for circularity. Design for disassembly, as also Peter Richner stressed. It hasn't passed unnoticed also by the media. There will be a film on 25th of October at 3 Sat. I don't know if you can see that from here, but I'm sure it will be distributed also by YouTube. Yeah, and thank you very much for listening.